Verpest ik weer je intro?
Ja, je verpest weer de intro.
Ik hou van intro verpesten.
Ja. Welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van de Nederlandse Kubernetes podcast. De podcast over Kubernetes voor iedereen. Mijn naam is Ronald Kers en ik zit zoals altijd met...
Oh ja, hallo Ronald, moet ik zeggen.
Ja, hallo Jan Stomphorst. Welkom.
Hey Ronald, dit is weer een aparte aflevering. Het is een release aflevering.
Een release aflevering. En niet zomaar een release, nummer 1.31.
Zeker. En dit is weer een hele speciale release aflevering.
Ja, klopt. Ja, we hebben iemand te gast uit het release team.
Ja, en daarom moeten we hem ook in het Engels doen.
Zeker. So I'm gonna switch to English and I would like to introduce Matteo Bianchi. Welcome.
Thanks guys. Hello, I'm Matteo. I'm from Italy, as you can see from the name. I'm a developer advocate and cloud native advocate especially. I'm part of the release team. I'm a shadowing for comms now. I live in the Netherlands, although I don't speak Dutch yet. But by the end of the podcast, I will learn at least 2-3 words.
We will make sure of that, yeah.
Thanks. To say I'm a metalhead and I'm a metal singer that as a hobby does IT to pay the bills.
Okay, and what's the name of the band?
I have a band in the Netherlands. It's called Scapegoat. Probably we're going to play somewhere around October in Amsterdam. So watch out on Instagram and every other social media.
Okay, so when we need a new intro, we can ask Matteo.
Oh, we ask you.
Of course.
That's awesome.
I also do electronic music. So I can
we don't like electronic music. We like metal.
Okay.
A song about the podcast, even better. Yeah? You can do the background vocals. Okay, well, Matteo, what's your background? How did you get started in the IT?
So I started my career in software engineering, and it was a bit of a legacy kind of software engineering where everything was done manually. I was also doing some system engineering, Linux management, database management, everything old style. And since I'm a very lazy person, I've always looked into how to automate my job. I started with just bash scripts, and then I realized there was a better way to do that. I started introducing myself to DevOps engineering and DevOps practices like, I don't know, CI/CD, automated testing and stuff like that. And then when I moved away from the first company that I got into in Milan, I went to this bigger enterprise in Italy, and they were in the verge of doing a big migration from a monolithic architecture to microservices. And that's when they told me, hey, we need you to do Kubernetes. Do you know what it is? No. Okay, figure it out. And here I am.
Which version did you start then?
I started with version 1.13 or 14. I don't remember the exact number, but it was in that range. So it was 2018 or early 2019. So it's quite a lot of time.
Yeah. And do you remember specific things about that release 1.13, 1.14?
Well, probably I don't remember still, but actually when I started looking into Kubernetes, I started with older releases to just get like a sense of what that was. And I think that deployments were not there or something, or they were called differently. So that was
that's in the older ones.
Yeah. I started with the older ones because I wanted to really understand what Kubernetes was about before jumping into the new release. That's something that I typically do with everything.
Nice.
And yeah, that was pretty amazing. And since then, I never stopped doing Kubernetes one way or another. May that be by infrastructure management or now that I'm doing more advocacy work. And that's I had a talk at Cloud Native Rejects in Europe, in Paris this year. I explained Kubernetes to my grandma, which is based on a real story. So.
Cool. And you're part of the release team?
Yeah, I'm part of the release team. I'm part of the the comms team, and I'm a shadow. So I'm basically shadowing the lead of this release, which is Abigail McGale. And I am following her in everything she does about managing the blogs, the press releases, the communication with our users. And we are in touch with a lot of different spaces of the release. And that's something that I really liked about this role, because we got to coordinate with every single step, from the release lead, Angelos, to every SIG, every special interest group. Probably everyone knows what those are. I don't need to explain that. But yeah, it's very nice because I can see a lot of stuff about the release. I think this is the best role to get started in the release team, because it's not technical. Like you don't need to know about, I don't know, programming, Golang or something. You just need to be curious, to be a good communicator. And yeah, you're going to get given all the tools that you need to navigate the release and to navigate the team, because it's a very big team. I think every role in the release has at least 4 to 5 shadows. So
what does a shadow do?
Yeah, so a shadow is doing exactly what the lead does, but in a controlled form. So let's say a shadow is drafting or is reviewing a blog, then the final approval comes from the lead, and the shadow is doing I would say, it's not the grunt work, because it's also very fun, but it's doing more of like a formative part of the release job, while the lead is doing something more official, approvals, and of course has ties with the core lead of the release. And yeah, this is pretty amazing. As a shadow, you can get to learn about how the release works, what are the components needed, what is the workflow of a release, what is branch management, what are we doing with all the life cycle of Kubernetes enhancement proposal. So from just the white paper, I would say, to the actual branches, to the doc branch, to the blogs, and of course the code as well. So there is a lot of automation involved, and I was surprised about that. Like all the GitHub stuff is managed by bots, all the labels, and it's pretty neat. Like at any time you can look at the GitHub boards we have, public by the way, and you can see where the release is going, if something was cut out of the release for some reason, because we also have, of course, tight deadlines to respect, especially for the code freeze and the doc freeze. The blog is a bit more relaxed. Like you can miss a blog deadline, it's okay. We're not that strict. If you go like 3 days or 4 days more, it's fine. Of course, writing a blog is important to communicate with the users.
Yeah, it's also difficult.
Yeah. And
you need to
not
get your point across.
Yeah, exactly. And most people that contribute to Kubernetes are pretty technical, of course.
Yeah.
And that's why also the comms team comes in to help them getting some draft content for the blogs. We do review. We help them shape it in a way where users can understand their technical point, even if they're not super technical, because I think this is really nice about the Kubernetes release, is that the communication is done in a way where even just a developer that doesn't really manage a Kubernetes cluster on a daily basis can understand what are the features that are coming in that they can use for making their cloud life better. So.
Cool. And how did you get involved with how did it started?
That's a pretty fun story. So the release assemblance, like the assemblance of the team, it's pretty open, like it's public. Again, there is just a Google form that goes out every release. After the release, the form is made public, and I didn't know about it, of course. And I bumped into it because my friend Alessandro, that you also had on the podcast, Alessandro Vozza,
friend of the show,
told me, hey, do you want to do some Kubernetes release work? And I'm like, yeah, it would be cool, but I think there's a lot of process. You have to be in the CNCF to work on Kubernetes, or you have to be an employee of Google.
He really makes it sound low key. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I just compiled the form and forgot about it. I was like, yeah, okay, they're not gonna pick me because, of course, I'm not working for a big company. I don't have a track record of contributing to Kubernetes in any capacity. So I just left and whatever. And after a couple of days, I received a response, hey, you're selected to be a shadow for comms. And I'm like, huh? What? And so that's how it started. It started completely by chance. I think that was a lucky shot.
Cool. And how much time do you need if you, for example, if I would be a shadow of comms, how much time do I need to invest?
So it varies on the amount of effort you want to put in. Of course, the scope of a shadow can vary, and the final goal, of course, is to learn.
Yeah.
If you are curious about stuff, if you want to read more stuff, then you can do it, of course. I would say the minimum amount of hours would be, I think, less than an hour per day, aside from meetings. So we have meetings that are regularly scheduled. At the beginning of the release, of course, they are more relaxed. And now we have a meeting every day almost, or every other day, plus async, of course, async communication that goes on in Slack channels. But at the beginning of the release, especially for comms, since we are waiting for the enhancement freeze to go on and then the code freeze, we have a bit more room to explore. And personally, I think I've spent, I would say, 8 hours in a week when the release was not that hot like now. And now I probably spend a bit more time counting also meetings. I would say 10, 12 hours. But it's also because I want to really
be involved.
Be involved and even do something extra like reviewing the blogs or like trying to understand if a cap can be an exception. Because you also get to see the code. You also get to understand personally, since I'm an engineer, I can understand if a cap is a small change or a big change in the code base. And so I can suggest to write a blog or not. I can write a bit of an outline. I can reach out to see if the feature is something that we need to treat as a major team. So that's
okay. Cool.
That's something that you can do. It based on your skills and your attitude.
Yeah.
Some people maybe are more well versed in blogs, and then they can review more blogs. Since I'm an engineer, I also lean towards the code side of things.
Yeah, and jack of all trades.
Yeah. Jack of some trades.
Some trades.
Yeah.
Well, every release has a special name. You had the Planternitis. You had the Kubernetes. For the Japanese people out there.
Or the emo kids.
Is there something? Yeah. Is there something you can share about this? The name of this release?
Yes. So the name of this release is Elli, and is the name of the dog of Angelos, which is the release lead. It's very personal for him. And it's a very nice logo as well. There is a cute dog wearing like a captain hat. So it's really, really nice, well designed. And I think this release is very, it feels like cozy. First we had the cat with Kubernetes. Yeah. Now we have a dog. So we are pet friendly in the team especially. And sometimes when we have the calls, you can see like cats going around in the background or stuff. So a lot of release members have pets. And I think this is also nice for the release itself.
Everybody can contribute to the logo, put in suggestions, or in the team lead is makes a final cut?
The lead as the final cut, but people can, yes, indeed suggest. Most times is something very personal to the release lead. And sometimes it's also more like communal. I think Kubernetes was more like community, and this one is more personal, but there's no like right answer. And I think that the community actually, when we spoke about the logo in one of the release meetings, we were excited about it because it was very, very cute.
Ah, nice.
Oh, cool. And Cube Dog.
Cube Dog.
Cool.
Trademark.
Yeah, that's registered.
Registered, yeah. You heard it first here.
Oh, yeah, of course. If a release starts, and could you take us on the journey how a release goes?
Yes. So first of all, you have to assemble the team, the shadow team especially, because the leads are elected a bit before. Because one of the first tasks that a lead of each area has is to assemble the shadow team. So to get all the applications, to review them, and to pick the shadows for that release. I would say the release spans typically around like 15 weeks, 14, 15, maybe sometimes 16 if there are major vacations or events like the 4th of July in the US or something like that, or Christmas. And in that case, it's a bit more extended. Aside from that, once you assemble the team, there is a phase of orientation for the shadow, of course, where we get explained like what is the release team, what are the different areas, what will be our area of competence. And then after that, we start with the scheduled meetings. Every week we have one at least. Typically, I think we have two. Like one is the overall all ends release meeting, and then there is another for your area. In our case, we are together with docs, so we participate to the SIG docs weekly meetings. Maybe branch release as another meeting like that, I'm pretty sure. And so you have at least 2 meetings per week. There are 2 time zones for the meetings, of course, because we are spanned across the globe. So we have European and US meetings. I would say US probably on the East Coast, so New York and stuff. And then we have another that is more friendly to India, Japan, APAC area, and probably the San Francisco coast, so the West Coast. Yeah. And then after that, when we have these meetings, of course, we are just giving communication about the current status. The work is done pretty much async. We create groups with our lead on Slack, and we communicate daily. Daily probably now that the release is hot, but at the beginning is a bit more slow. You get accustomed to the tasks you have. You track everything on a board, on a GitHub board, so it's very structured. You have a GitHub board for your area, but you can explore, of course, every other board. You don't need to, but it's always nice to have an overview of where you can help eventually. And then, this is actually how the release goes for the first, I would say, 10 weeks. And then towards the end, when there's 1 month left, there are all the code freeze dates, or all the freeze dates, starting with the enhancement freeze. And then there is a code freeze, a test freeze, and a docs freeze. And that's until the release day. Towards the release day, we have burn down meetings, where, of course, we have to handle all the final tasks, like getting approvals on the PRs, or like unblocking an exception that has raised in one of the tests. Sometimes it happens that the tests are flaky. And when I say test, you have to understand that Kubernetes gets tested on real environments with AWS, Azure, GCP, different settings, different kind of nodes. And of course, you have to test everything extensively. We have a test grid application that sends every day, but I get it weekly because I don't want to get my email spammed. You get all the test results, and a team is specifically, the Signal team is specifically hired to get the results of tests and communicate with the release leads. If there are flaky tests or something like that, that has to be solved. And then you can ping, of course, the single SIG, or in most cases, it's about infrastructure. So we have a special SIG just for that before was done by Google on a rotation, just an SRE rotation, I would say. And now it's done through a Slack channel. So it's more open. It's not only Google. So I think the last Google-only part of the release is gone now. I think now it's really 100% agnostic. Before it was just 99.9. And that's about it.
Okay, cool. And then we'll get a release. Hopefully
by the 13th of August. That's the scheduled date. And I think it's probably gonna be that day, because now everything is green.
Bij ACC ICT staat alles in het teken van continuïteit waarborgen voor bedrijfskritische applicaties. Of het nu gaat over Managed OTAP, Cloud en Kubernetes, ze geven hier invulling aan om door samen met hun klanten een toekomstbestendige strategie uit te stippelen voor het gehele proces van ontwikkelen tot en met productie. Let's talk about the green stuff. Let's talk about 1.31. There were a lot of features and enhancements.
Yes.
We
and
will not talk
deprecations
and deprecations also. Yes, yeah. Because we're not going to talk about all of them.
No, it's too much. It's much too much. We've got a fully extensive list.
Shall I kick it off?
You can kick it off.
Yes.
The first one that's moving to stable. Move the C group v1 support into maintenance mode.
Yeah, you've got the V2 C groups.
Yeah.
They've got more features, offering better functionality.
Can I explain what a C group is? Maybe for the people who don't know it yet. I think.
What is a C group?
From what I know, it's help manage and allocate system resources like a CPU and memory, and to a different task or applications running on the server. In a nutshell, maybe you can elaborate more on that. If I missed something,
I think it's pretty good explanation. I would say it's like in the kernel level, and then of course the V1 is going just into maintenance mode. So we want to reassure our users nothing is changing. We are just getting only like security updates, no new features, because those are moved to the C2, to the V2 of the C groups, and those are like more performant. And the community, the Linux community, actually went into that direction, and Kubernetes, of course, has to follow.
Yeah, it's a Linux general.
Yes,
feature.
But for our perspective, a pod runs in a C group.
Yes.
So that's your resources of that pod runs in a separate C group, and it has boundaries. That's the C group boundaries. That's the easiest way I can explain it.
And there is also persistent volume last phase transition time. And so they need to do something about those names. I noted that the last time when we talked about the update, there are so many long
This is
names.
not even the longest.
It's not even the longest, but it could
no.
be easier. Maybe we put a marketing guy on those names or
The
something.
titles.
Yeah.
So these are just the titles of the issue. So they're pretty much like a developer writing some titles. So you can see that. And you don't want to see the commit messages. In this case, we know that some users had some problem in the transition phases for the persistent volumes, especially when deleting them. The retain policies are sometimes they are left unclaimed. And this was a big problem, especially when you were migrating storage stuff. Now you don't need to do a lot of manual cleanups anymore, because that was done manually before by cluster admins. And now you don't need to do that anymore. So this is very useful also to provide metrics, because now you can really see in a very generic way when a volume transition to one phase to another. So it's really nice, even to troubleshoot performance issues with the underlying storage part that typically is like from a cloud provider, but it can also be on bare metal, of course.
Yeah.
And there is of course like a new field that is introduced to get this timestamp.
Yeah.
So that's
that's awesome. It's much better, because storage is always a bit difficult in Kubernetes. So you've got like the next one is Kubernetes volume attribute class modify volume.
See, it was not the longest one.
No, this is more difficult.
We're just getting started.
But Ronald, what is that?
Let me think about it. Workloads often need to scale, not just by adding more capacity, but also by adjusting performance settings like IOPS and throughput. So I think you can set the IOPS in Kubernetes now, and you're not dependent on the cloud provider management.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, that hits still limitations for the kind of storage you have underlying. Let's say you are on AWS. If you have a different kind of disk, of course, the maximum throughput and IOPS are still related to the cloud provider. But at least when you are going through the range that the cloud provider has, you can do it from Kubernetes directly. You don't need to go outside of Kubernetes, do a manual task or even an automated one, but it's not within your Kubernetes cluster. And that's, I think, it's pretty amazing, especially where you can see the configuration that is going on your manifests and stuff. So, yeah.
But this is still beta feature, so...
Yeah, it's still a beta feature, but I think
nothing's
it's pretty
gonna
nice.
change.
Yeah, nothing's gonna change. It's disabled by default, but you can enable it, and I think you should. You can try it out. Maybe don't do it in production. Or if you do it in production, then report if there's any problem. You can always open an issue on the Kubernetes repo.
Yeah, we'll send you we'll send your contact details in the show notes, so
of
they
course,
can report everything to you.
I will just forward to SIG storage.
Yeah, of course.
There's also the custom resource field selectors. Jan, anything to add on that one?
It's a built-in API support field. Added some status phase for the pods. I think it's a difficult one.
Well, what I know about it, in Kubernetes you can use field selectors to filter resources based on specific fields, like the status of a pod, for example, when it's running or pending, and this helps in curing the managing resource efficiently. Efficiently, yeah. However, this feature is available for built-in resources like pods, and not for the custom resources created by the custom resource definitions, the CRDs. Custom resources are user-defined resources that extend Kubernetes capabilities.
Yeah, this I think is like more an enhancement to avoid like duplicating data in the labels. So you can easily have everything in a grouped field selector. So it's just easier to highlight your resources based on whatever field you want to consider.
Yes.
I like the next one.
The next one, the consistent reads from cache.
Yeah, because I've got some workloads that need that.
Yeah. Normally, Kubernetes reads the data is fetched from the etcd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you got like a big application, like an AI application or something like that, you often do a read from etcd. But now we've got some caching in there. It's going to be much faster and much simpler.
Yeah, and especially it's going to be more reliable. So you can, even if it's a cache, it's still like reading the data from, and at least it's more performant. And so you don't need to go to etcd every single time.
No.
And yeah, I think that enhances, especially for bigger clusters with a lot of pods, that's going to be very helpful. Probably not so impactful on smaller clusters, but for bigger workloads, yes.
Yeah, it's especially for big workloads. So I like it.
Yeah,
I like the enhancement. It's a small thing, but it's something that makes my life a lot better.
Yeah. Well, the next feature is kind of funny. If what we noted about the names of all the features and changes, maybe this one can also be applied to that one. The retry generate the name. So in Kubernetes, when creating resources like pods or services, you can use a feature called generate name. And this feature allows Kubernetes to automatically generate a unique name for a resource by appending a random suffix to the base prefix you provide. If a name conflict happens when Kubernetes tries to create a resource with a name that's already taken, the API server currently responds with an HTTP 409 error. This means conflict. The generate name enhancement retries creating resources with a new name if there is a conflict within an existing name.
Just creates a new name if the name is already taken. That's the short
That's a short answer.
That's so much for pseudo randoms. There's no real randomness, and there can be conflicts. And one time it happened to me, and I was so frustrated because I wouldn't understand why. Because I was doing everything right. The problem was a random name conflicting with another.
Yeah. And now that's fixed, at least. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Up to the enhancements. We've got a random pod selection on a replica set downscaling. So there's scenarios when a replica set can reach an imbalanced state across failure domains, and it's now a randomized algorithm for a pod downscaling replica sets, and that's better.
Yeah, because sometimes you got to downscale with the new pods first. And so when you were rolling out a release, there were times where it would happen that your newer pods were downscaled and the older pods were kept. But now it's random, so yeah, I think
really random, or
somewhat random, softly random,
softly random. Because really random, that's still a problem.
Yeah.
And the next one?
The next one allows stateful set to control the start replica ordinal numbering.
That's an easy one.
Is that an easy one?
You know what a stateful set does? It starts numbering always from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now you can set that number not to 0, but to 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, it starts from...
So it's really an easy one, but it's sometimes good to have. For example, if you have more than one cluster and you've got like clusters connected with each other, then it's good to have unique names. That's
Sense.
That's it.
There are a lot of enhancements in this direction in the name, of course, of stability. So I think, until now we got a lot of like pretty good enhancement to avoid manual work like these ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like elastic index jobs is also an enhancement.
Yeah, those are used for batch processing. So where each pod runs a specific task identified by an index number. For example, a job might involve multiple pods processing a different path of data.
And also this issue, I think it's very nice for workloads like AI ones.
Yeah, these are especially for AI workloads.
Yeah. So this is part of the plethora of enhancements around AI and machine learning that we saw in this release.
That's awesome. So it's really for like a PyTorch or for that kind of job to start up.
Yep.
And
Definitely.
Is it then it's better indexed, so it's faster?
Yeah. Basically, in a nutshell, yes. You're pretty good at summarizing the features. We should hire this person for the Kubernetes release team.
Yeah.
Do you want to title all the features?
I'm doing podcasting, so yeah.
I will put on the video where you can see Jan shining right now, you know? The next one.
The next one.
Yeah,
is
retriable and non-retriable pod failures for jobs.
a lot of computational workload. So it's comprising thousands of pods. Requires a usage of a pod restart policy to order the infrastructure. So if you've got a lot of pods running on your cluster, something needs to restart.
Yeah.
And they're restarting. But you want to have a policy for that.
Okay. And it wasn't there yet.
Not yet.
No, not yet. You could do it with external stuff, like with Argo or with other softwares. But like now it's embedded in the system and it's pretty amazing, especially when you have some applications that they don't really put like an order on startup of certain pods that are related via services. And now they automatically retry even if you don't use Argo or any of these rollout technologies. So it's pretty nice for any workload that is complex enough to have more pods involved.
Yeah.
They have to communicate with each other.
This is also a bit AI thing. Because if you have a PyTorch or something else, you've got more jobs and restarting is in an order. It's awesome.
Yeah. Like a TensorFlow workload, for example.
Yeah.
Can be pretty useful for that.
Okay. The next one. The pod healthy policy for pod distribution budget.
Disruption project.
Oh, yeah. Pod healthy the pod health policy for pod disruption budget.
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 It's a difficult one. Not that difficult because you know the pod disruption budget. You know that? That's awesome.
Yeah. It's for preserving availability and ensuring a minimum number of pods remain available and are ready during disruptions and preventing data loss. So ensuring data.
If you have a pod disruption budget and you've got like a cluster that's downscaling, downsizing, and there's still a pod on one of those nodes, it will not downsize because there's it's a dependency. It can't downsize.
Yeah.
So it has to evict that pod first.
Yeah. So
the problem with that was that sometimes you would keep an unhealthy pod, and you could not evict a node for that.
Yeah.
And the budget was not adjusting to the policy, so you could not really get rid of unused resources in a way because they were only failing. But now at least you will have a policy for that, so you can evict that pod and then drain the node.
And that's awesome. That's I think that's a good feature to have towards stability.
Yeah, that's a step forward also for sustainability, because like now many nodes that are maybe left unused because of this unhealthy pods are going to be evicted, and some people are going to see some lesser nodes on their clusters and say, hey, ooh, now this is a good feature.
Yeah.
So there is also the AppArmor support. And for people who don't know what AppArmor is, it's a security module for the Linux kernel that provides an additional layer of security by restricting the capabilities of programs.
Yeah,
it helps in defining what system resources and files and applications can access.
Yeah, it's like SA Linux for Debian and Ubuntu. But we get those. I always put those things in the podcast because I think it's really important to have that. To know that the security is getting better in Kubernetes all the time. They're working on SA Linux, AppArmor support. It's so important that you use that.
Yeah, especially when you're doing like multi-tenancy, avoiding that some tenants can access data from another. That's also very important. So I think we are going in the right direction with securing Kubernetes for real. I mean, it's still tied to the Linux overall security, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But I think there is a degree of risk that the Kubernetes release team needs to assess in some of the features. And I think we are going pretty nicely about it. Of course, with SIG security watching over us, watching very closely.
Add CDI devices to device plugin API.
Yeah, the container device interface. What is that, Jan? Explain it to me.
So the container device interface provides a standard mechanism for vendors to describe what is required to provide access to a specific resource. So just like a CPU.
Or GPU.
Yeah. And these resources can be uniquely identified using a fully qualified CDI device, but just like storage.
But Matteo, you also have the device plugin API in Kubernetes, right?
Yes, we do. But this is a bit different because we are using directly the CRI runtime. So like, I don't know, containerd or cryo. And they are ready to receive this CDI. And they are also like associated with the specifications to ensure that they have all the modification on the OCI runtime.
Okay, cool. And kubeproxy improved the ingress connectivity reliability.
So kubeproxy, do we need to explain what kubeproxy is?
I don't think so. But
well, it's a critical component in Kubernetes that manages network traffic and load balancing for services within the cluster.
Wow. But it's better to have a good ingress and adding a new /liveness
probe for kubeproxy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
To have that.
Yeah, finally.
And why is that awesome?
Then you can see if it's still working. Are you alive? Are you alive?
Yeah, I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. No.
Yeah, and that is also not really impacted by any node termination, for example. So that's pretty awesome. You don't need to wait for any node to come up or down. And you can already see if your kubeproxy is doing well, which is pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah. The metric cardinality enforcement.
Yeah, we had a problem within Kubernetes.
A problem in Kubernetes.
A problem.
How can that happen?
More than one.
More than one.
But one of those was metrics. Metrics. We had a leak in the metrics. So we had a memory leak in the metrics, and this solves a lot and prevents the memory leaks to happen in the future. So that's awesome.
And then we also have the persistent volume last phase transition time.
It's somewhat the same as we talked before. It's when you delete your persistent volume, sometimes it goes wrong.
Yeah, and you want to know how much time you spend going from a state to another, let's say from pending to bound, or from the deletion. So
Okay.
very useful for SREs.
Yeah.
Hi to all the SREs at home. If you're listening to the podcast, probably you are on call now. And it's 3 a.m.
Cool. Yeah, these were all the beta ones I wanted to talk about. We've got some alpha changes which are in there. Always alpha changes are still subject for changes a bit.
Yeah. They are pretty, I would say, a bit more than experimental changes. And they are, of course, all of them disabled by default. And they have to be accessed via a flag, a feature flag.
Feature gate.
Yeah. And you can use them, of course. You can try them out. Sometimes some alpha features are requested heavily by particular users. And so, of course, they will try them out even in production. I don't suggest it, but you can do it.
Yeah, but and those feature gates are not always available on the clouds.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You have to wait that the cloud supports that release. And of course, in some cases, also the feature itself.
Yeah. And on-premise, they're always available.
Always available.
Always available.
On-premise, you have the full control. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got some of those I wanted to talk about, like the fine-grained supplemental groups control. So the supplemental groups are attached to the first container in the process if you start up pods.
What I found about it is the fine-grained supplemental groups control enhancement introduces a new API field to manage and enforce supplemental group IDs for container processes in a more secure and controlled manner. It aims to prevent security issues related to group permissions, provide clear detection methods for administrators, and offer optional tools for managing these settings. This helps maintain security policies and avoid unexpected access issues in Kubernetes environments.
Yeah, it's clearly more like grouping the pods in a way where it's easier to get which group belongs to which pod.
Yeah.
And ensuring that you're only using those groups and there are no malicious grouping injected or leaks in the configuration of the policies.
Maybe it's also a good way to in the release notes put this kind of summary for people. You know?
Yeah, actually, if you see the release notes, I think they are more compacted.
More compacted,
yeah. But the release notes are not there yet.
No, this time no.
So, feature request for podcast people.
Yeah.
From the podcast people to the release team.
Yeah.
So what I always do is I will go into the issues.
Yeah.
And then
that's a good way, but also in the release notes we have at the top the important, urgent settings that you have to put, and then of course, if you are interested in a specific setting, then you should go to the feature itself and to the docs to explore and see how to enable that, how to configure that. But for breaking changes, we always have at the very top of the release notes and also referment in the blog. In the release blog, we always have the instructions. Of course, we don't want any disservice for the users.
Well, maybe it's a good idea to have some kind of press release, so you can send to podcast people or a list of media to. These are in a more compact way from what's the changes.
Yeah, that we actually do that, but we do it only for major changes and the removals, of course. But with the removals, we have a full blog, and that's already out and at the mid release. So I would say after 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, need to look into that.
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. I'm not there yet.
They're not done.
Not done yet. They're not done yet. So keep listening. The removals are coming. So we've got a new static policy proposal: spread HD across physical CPUs.
Yeah, that sounds like a difficult one. Maybe you can explain it in two sentences, but
yeah, it's involving L2 cache and NUMA cores, so it's pretty much at the very low level of the CPU. And I think, it's about like the cores of the CPU itself.
No, it's a nosy neighbor thing. So if you have two pods are running on one core and they're doing almost the same things, the processor is going to be that busy with the same things, and it's too busy. So it collides. So if you have those processors spread across different CPUs, it doesn't collide. It goes faster.
Okay.
And that's awesome. So it's more speed for your containers. It's just by thinking.
It's like an anti-affinity for threads.
Yeah.
In a way.
Okay.
That's.
Could we call it anti-affinity for threads?
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Write it down now.
But that's awesome. Then we've got Discover C group driver from CRI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, I did a few. Now it's your turn.
Oh, it's always my turn.
No, but this is, I think, easier to summarize than the one before. We are making the kubelet use the same C group as the container runtime, container D or whatever you're using, and that's it's really straightforward.
Yeah,
and it maintains, of course, every time or almost every time backward compatibility.
Yay.
So, yay, stability.
And the next one, do you use debug containers?
Yes, I do.
Also, often?
Not as often as before, because before I was more into SRE and pure DevOps. Now a bit less. Now it's weird if I access a Kubernetes cluster that it's not in my home lab. And my home lab is pretty stable.
Oh, awesome.
But I don't run AI on my home lab.
But sometimes you've got like you want a specific container with specific profiles. So you can create your own profile now for a debug container.
Can I say it's like glorified aliases for Git? It's the same. You're having aliases for your own debugs.
Yeah. Okay. So you can specify if it's for security or
exactly. You have different
volumes.
profiles. You can configure them, and it's then easier to use the debug without like setting every single flag.
Every single flag. Yeah. Okay. Transitioning from SPDY or speedy to WebSockets. This one sounds a little bit familiar from the last time.
We had that also last time because it's just in there, but. To go to WebSockets is a really big transition from the old protocol.
Anything to add?
No, that's just for information. I think introducing match labels for pod affinity and pod anti-affinity is a great one. That the match labels, it's the pod affinity and anti-affinity always need some more information, it's always difficult, but during a rolling upgrade, depending on its update strategy, an old and new version may coexist on the cluster. So it's scheduled, and has some problems with that.
Yeah.
So
it would happen again. It's a bit of the same issues that we saw before, that you could keep older versions without making the newer version roll out. So that's why this changes also regarding stability in a way of new releases in this case.
Let's go to the deprecations, please.
Yes, please.
So
okay, the deprecation of status.nodeinfo.kubeproxy version field for nodes.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone. Okay, what did it do? And what do you need to look out for?
I know it wasn't that accurate. That it probably was not ever like that useful anyway. And you would get the information about the current version of the kubeproxy that it was running for your cluster. So
okay.
That's about it. So I mean, it's a feature gate again, so you can always revert back to the previous behavior if you need it. But yeah, that's it. No longer attempts to see the field and its associated statuses for the node.
Yeah, awesome.
The next one is kind of interesting, I think. Or
removal of all in-tree integrations with cloud providers.
Yes, that's something that I followed closely. It's pretty much the end of the big migration that we saw with the previous release. to take out all the cloud provider specific code from Kubernetes to like the cloud provider itself. Making Kubernetes really agnostic, cloud agnostic. So I think this is a pretty good step forward. This was just like removing the last parts that were still there of the cloud provider's code. And in fact, it was started like in 1.26.
Yeah, it's really long.
And now it's finally over. So again, every recommendation that we gave in the previous release still stands. You should not anymore try to use cloud provider code inside Kubernetes. So that's everything is outside now.
That's good to note again. Yeah.
Okay. Removal of kubelet and keep terminated pod volumes command line flag.
Yeah.
I don't know if ever used it.
I think no. I think I never used it.
Okay. For the people who do use it.
Gone.
It's gone.
Forever.
So you don't need to learn about it anymore. What it does. It's gone.
Removal of the FS volume plugin. And the volume plugins are all moved to the CDIs.
Exactly. That's
CDIs.
what happened. Again, I think this is in the name of really fully agnosticism, even regarding volume plugins. So now Kubernetes only does the Kubernetes things. And whenever you need something external for volumes and stuff, you're going to do it outside.
It's the same for the Ceph RBD plugin. That's the same.
And the deprecation of non-CSR volume limits plugins in the Kube scheduler also relates to those two, I think. Or
even for cloud provider specific stuff like the Azure disk limits or the EBS limits. So it's gone for good.
It's gone. Okay,
cool. And in 1.32, some things are gonna change already. We know that already. Looking ahead?
Yeah, we know something already. I mean, most of the deferred features for this release are probably going to try to get in again in 1.32, including eliminating customized from kubectl. That's under discussion. Let's see what happens. There was a pretty heated discussion about it. But for sure, we know that the flow control .api server krs.io is adding the flow schema and priority level configuration. Actually, is removing, the flow schema and priority level configuration. You can already start taking them out from the manifest.
Okay,
cool.
Nice. Okay.
So,
I think that's about it.
No, it's so much.
It's so much,
so much more in this release.
We can sit here for 1 hour more if you want to.
Of course. Change by change.
Change by change. Yeah. Matteo, we always close the podcast off with a final question, at least this topic. If we put a crystal ball on the table, what do you want to see in the future in the Kubernetes landscape?
So I think I'm a pretty, hands-on person. So I don't like to think about like flying cars and stuff. But I think that this release and even the next one will show us not a shift, but a tilt towards machine learning and AI, of course. That's like a market request. Most of the users are starting using Kubernetes and Kubeflow and related projects for AI workloads. So we are going into that direction where we are supporting more GPU workloads or TPU as well. So that's something that I think will go big in the next releases. But also, of course, as we said, stability, networking, like lots of enhancements on networking. And then I think, again, another theme that is going on is the real making Kubernetes agnostic. So really taking out everything that it's not Kubernetes related, but even if it's Kubernetes related, taking it to a different repo, let's say kubectl. It's been a while now. There is a repo that is only a mirror for the kubectl code, and it's containing the issues about kubectl. But in the future, I think it will migrate totally out of the Kubernetes code itself.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a different tool.
It is. It's completely attached to Kubernetes. It will have a similar release lifecycle, but it can support different versions. More often than not, it's compatible and it's backward compatible. So it's really just another added piece to the release team. So I think it's nice to have a separated cycle for that.
Yeah.
And that's the same, I think, for Customize, because I think, like, let's say Helm is out. It's completely out. It's in the Kubernetes Slack. There's still like part of the community overlaps, but the project is different. The steering is different, and that I think it's fair to do it also for Customize. I do understand that a lot of legacy pipelines are going to break, but that's the risk of open source as well. And I think the risk is on the company adopting open source and not on the open source project itself, on the maintainers. We can do it nice and slow, but at some point it has to be out. This, for example, but everything that it's not heavily related to Kubernetes has to stay in another repo, another project. Same umbrella under the CNCF, but I think
the code base stays the same also.
Yeah, the code base needs to be the cleanest code base possible to allow like more and more new features in the name of stability, in the name of like new workloads.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be too big.
Yeah.
To a monolithic.
It becomes a monolith in itself.
Monolithic,
We are going back again to monoliths.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I also heard is that people are starting to compare Kubernetes to an operating system.
Yeah, it's the operating system of the cloud. That's how I explain it to people that are not accustomed to Kubernetes. Like my father, for example. He knows what an operating system is because he also has a computer.
Yeah.
He works as a tax consultant. So I told him, hey, I work with the operating system, but of the cloud. So it's just like you're running on your computer on Windows. I run stuff in the cloud, and I'm like working with the operating system of that. So
Yeah.
it handles storage, handles networking.
Yeah, I think there are people who say, oh, no, it's not an operating system, please.
Okay. Those are like people that install like some Linux distros. I don't know, probably Arch.
I always say that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an operating system.
No, not yet. Maybe in the future. No? Okay. Let's leave that that is. Matteo, where can people find you?
On the beach.
On the
I'm
beach.
kidding. I'm going to Italy for a bit again, but no. Seriously speaking, you can find me at mbianchidev on any social media. Physically, you will find me in London in the 19th and 20th of September. I will be speaking at SRE Day and also staying for the weekend in London. So if you want to grab a beer, just let me know.
Cool.
And aside from that, I'm officially open to work. So if you are a company, you're in need of a cloud native advocate or an engineer, just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of companies interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you all.
It is.
We forgot about the 3 words.
Oh.
Next time.
Next time. Okay. No, really, a lot of information. A great podcast. Long podcast this time, but it's
worth it. Totally worth it.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
and see you around.
See you around, man.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Deze podcast is een initiatief van ACC ICT en wij zijn te beluisteren op onze website k8spodcast.nl via Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast en alle andere favoriete podcastproviders.